Shocking truths. 5 brutal reasons you'd never survive 24 hours in ancient Greece. The sun blazed high, piercing through the blue sky as the hustle of ancient Greece unfolded. Temples loomed large, casting shadows that whispered of a time when gods walked among men. But beneath the grandeur lay dark realities. 5 brutal truths that would turn even the bravest soul pale with dread. Imagine being in a marketplace, the salty scent of the sea mixing with the aroma of fresh bread, when suddenly chaos erupts. Merchants scream, their wares scattered, as a gang of thieves storms through, brandishing daggers with cold, merciless eyes. In this world, survival isn't guaranteed. It's a daily battle against brutality. In this chaos, women were just as caught in the fray. They were expected to be meek, but if they ventured outside the lines, the consequences could be deadly. Think about it. Caught in a web of expectations, daring to break free could lead you straight to a dark, unlit corner of town, where no one would hear your screams. It wasn't just the crime that should make you tremble, it was the unyielding societal norms. Picture a man holding a woman's wrist tightly, pulling her into an alley. Eyes are averted, silence reigns. Danger lurked everywhere, yet no one dared to intervene. And what about your health? Ancient Greeks had remedies that would make you squirm like leeches. A common treatment for ailments, these blood-sucking creatures could be your first taste of survival, or death. Imagine lying there, feeling the chilling touch of a slimy leech on your arm, your heart racing as you realize this is how your health is managed. Fear gnaws at you. Could healing really mean risking your life? Now, consider this. Daily life was riddled with uncertainty. Battles raged constantly, and not just on battlefields but in the minds of men fueled by honor and vengeance. A single whisper could spark a feud, leading to immediate retaliation. You walk a tightrope, balancing on fragile alliances and your very existence, where one wrong look could lead to disaster. The tension prickles at your skin, your heart thumping in your chest as you navigate this lethal reality. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Now imagine a festival day, where the joy of the people masks the lurking threats. Laughter echoes, but your instincts scream. A sudden silence falls. You sense the tension shifting, a crowd gathering not to celebrate but to witness a brutal spectacle. Gladiators clash, their steel swords glinting, blood spilling onto the sand as the roar of the crowd rips through the air. Will you stand by or flee? You realize this isn't just entertainment, it's a matter of life and death. This was ancient Greece, a world where horror and survival tangoed daily, where each heartbeat resonated with a tale of dread and resilience. You take a step back, breathless, feeling the weight of the truths weighing down on you. What else lies hidden in this vibrant yet ruthless world? The shadows beckon, inviting you to delve deeper into the mysteries waiting just beyond the horizon. The air crackled with anticipation as the crowd roared its approval, a frenzy fueled by bloodlust and joy. It was a sight that made your stomach churn. Bodies pressed against you, pushing and shoving, each person vying for a better view of violence, a festivity built on the foundation of pain. You turned away from the gladiators, seeking a breath, a moment where the chaos didn't swallow you whole. Yet distance did little to ease the pounding in your chest. If only you could escape this tension, but then, you spotted something at the edge of the arena, a woman, tied to a post, her face pale, eyes wide with terror. The crowd's laughter turned sinister as one of the gladiators approached her. You squinted against the sun, heart racing. Was she a volunteer? Or had she been dragged into this nightmare against her will? The answer clawed at you, doubt gnawed at your mind, but instinct screamed at you to act. Suddenly, her gaze locked onto yours, and in that instant, everything shifted. Her fear felt like a rope that tethered you. Could you stand by while she faced whatever fate awaited her? You slipped through the throng, every step a fight against your own pounding heartbeat. Voices rose and fell, the raw adrenaline intoxicating, but you couldn't shake the dread clenching your gut. You could be risking your life, but then again, would you be able to live with yourself if you didn't try? Let her go! You shouted, your voice drowned out by hoots and jeers. The gladiator turned, his lips curling into a wicked grin. Oh, look! A hero! He mocked, raising his weapon high. The threat of violence loomed, electrifying the air. The crowd's laughter faded into a dangerous silence. People turned to watch. You were the focus now. What had started as a blip in the routine melee of gladiatorial games had evolved into a spectacle of its own. With a few deep breaths, you readied yourself, adrenaline coursing through your veins. The realization rushed and you had to outsmart him, not overpower him. No one was coming to save anyone here. Instead of backing down, you drew on the fear that churned inside you, morphing it into courage. I challenge you! You bellowed, a tremor of uncertainty threatening to crack your voice. The crowd stirred, murmurs of intrigue spreading like wildfire. Enough, pathetic fool! You think you stand a chance? He spat, laughter rippling through the masses. But you sensed it, a shift in the energy, curiosity peaking among the spectators. You had their attention. Time crawled, each heartbeat echoing like a judgment. Would he accept your challenge? Would the crowd's appetite for blood be sated by a duel, or would they hunger for further violence? With a wave of his hand, he gestured for silence. The mannequin grin faded. He was considering it. Very well. 1 round. The weight of that declaration landed like a brick in your gut. Your heart raced, but you had crossed an invisible line. There was no turning back now. You turned to the woman again, her eyes wide. Caught in a brutal reality where hope and despair danced dangerously close, a shocking truth emerged. You were now entangled in a game far larger than survival. As silence enveloped the arena, the question lingered in the air like a knife's edge. Would you become the savior or succumb to the darkness? The clash of steel rang out as its echoes faded into looming dread, marking the start of the most dangerous chapter of your life. The crowd's attention pulsed like a living thing, eager for the spectacle of blood. You could feel their energy vibrating against your skin, a cacophony of shouts and taunts that filled the arena. As the gladiator stepped forward, a predator circling its prey, you steeled yourself. Fear crackled within you like static electricity, sparking every nerve. The weapon in his hand gleamed under the sun, a cruel mockery of glory meant to instill fear. While you gripped the makeshift weapon, you'd managed to find a wooden staff discarded in the dirt. It felt weak, barely more than a twig beside the gladiator's blade. But you had a small advantage: unpredictability. The gladiator laughed, a deep, arrogant sound that seemed to drown out the crowd's roars. You think an unarmed fool can take me? This will be a slaughter. He brandished his sword, the crowd responding with wild cheers. Time slowed to a crawl. You thought of the woman tied to the post, those terrified eyes pleading for help. You had to make this fight count. You weren't just fighting for your life but for hers too. Come on then! You shouted, trying to keep your voice steady. Show me what you've got. It was a childish taunt, but it worked. His eyes narrowed, drawn like a moth to flame. He charged at you, a blur of steel and fury. You sidestepped, adrenaline surging like fire through your veins. The crowd gasped as his sword sliced through the air where you'd just been standing, missing you by mere inches. You countered with your staff, swinging hard and connecting with his side. A shocked expression crossed his face, and the roaring crowd hushed momentarily. You'd done it. You'd landed a hit. But victory was fleeting. He quickly recovered, turning the full force of his rage toward you. There was no use hesitating. You pressed forward, determined to use his own momentum against him. You fight like a coward! You shouted, hoping to rattle his focus further. He lunged again. This time, you weren't fast enough. The blade caught your side, pain exploded like fire, a hot, burning reminder of your mortality. You stumbled back, gasping, but instinct kicked in. You had to keep moving, keep fighting. The arena trembled under the thunder of the crowd, their cheers a blaring siren urging you onward. You regained your footing, your heart pounding in rhythm with the wild chants of the spectators. The gladiator grinned, sensing your weakness, circling you like a shark ready to pounce. But as you fought back, A dizzying thought crossed your mind. What if it wasn't just about strength? What if this arena held more secrets than flesh and blood? A glance at the woman reminded you of your purpose, her features etched into your memory with desperation. In this moment, she was your tether to humanity. You pivoted, summoning every ounce of energy. With a swift motion, you aimed for his legs, sweeping your staff low. He fell with a surprised grunt, the crowd erupting into chaos as you caught them off guard. The moment hung heavy, giving you a chance to catch your breath. He scrambled up, fury blazing in his eyes. "You'll regret that," he spat, spitting blood into the sand. The fight was far from over, and as the gladiator lunged once more, a chilling realization wrapped around you like a noose. Survival could demand a darkness you never anticipated. Suddenly, a shout rang through the air. "Look!" someone yelped, pointing. All eyes shifted to the edge of the arena where shadows loomed. Faces turned pale as figures emerged from the darkness, cloaked in mystery. Was it rescue or further danger? You had no time to ponder as you stood on the precipice of this unpredictable reality, the roaring crowd an echoing reminder of your desperate fight. But what would happen when the dust settled? Would the truth of this arena unravel in flames or silence? Your heart raced as the shadowy figures emerged, their cloaks billowing like smoke in a breeze. The crowd silenced, a wave of anticipation washing over them. You were caught in the eye of the storm, adrenaline screaming in your veins. The gladiator had halted, momentarily distracted by the intruders. This was your chance, but doubt clawed at your mind. Who were they? Were they coming to help, or to finish what this gladiator had started? You stole a glance at the woman, her face pale and resigned. Fear rooted you to the spot. You felt a primal impulse to fight or run. But where? The arena offered no refuge. The first figure stepped forward, revealing a face half hidden beneath the hood. "Release her," they commanded, voice steady and powerful. The gladiator straightened, a sneer curling his lips. "And who are you to command me, wretch? I fight for my life and for glory." "Glory?" The figure laughed, a sound sharp and slicing through the tension. "You are nothing but a relic of a savage past." The crowd stirred, a murmur of confusion spreading like wildfire. Eyes darted from the gladiator back to the mysterious figure, an electric pulse of excitement and fear running through them. The next figure took a step forward, and this time, you could see their face-sharp features, piercing eyes that seemed to bore into your soul. "He's right," they said, locking onto you. "You will need more than a wooden staff to survive this." Something deep within you stirred a flicker of hope, but it was quickly extinguished by the cold reality of your situation. The gladiator roared, eyes wild with rage, and surged forward. "I will tear you apart!" He charged, and fear ignited anew, sending spikes of ice through your spine. With instinct taking over, you lifted your staff, bracing for the impact. But the cloaked figures moved faster than you could process. In one swift motion, the first figure sidestepped the gladiator's charge and slipped something from their cloak. A glint of metal. Was it a blade? The crowd gasped as the figure darted forward. With a precise motion, they redirected the gladiator's momentum. There was a sickening thud as the gladiator collided with the edge of the arena. He staggered back, dazed, a look of bewildered shock cast across his face. The first figure turned their attention to you, urgency etched into their features. "You need to fight like your life depends on it." "Because it does." Your mind reeled. What was happening? Had you just witnessed a miracle? As the gladiator fought to regain his footing, a fire ignited within you. You glanced at the woman, her eyes, wide with astonishment, urged you forward. You weren't alone in this fight anymore. Summoning newfound resolve, you took a step towards the gladiator, adrenaline forging courage from within. The arena erupted with noise again, but this time, it felt different. The air was charged, heavy with potential. "Let us finish this," you murmured under your breath. As the gladiator brandished his sword once more, aiming for your heart, a decisive shout rang out. "Together!" The figures advanced, surrounding you. You weren't just a singular prey, fate had shifted. You could feel the power coursing through you, the blend of desperation and hope. But just as you prepared to strike, something in the shadows shifted again. A hand shot up, and a single phrase echoed across the arena, breaking through the chaos. "You've all made a grave mistake." Who had spoken? What had the cloaked figures truly come for? Uncertainty gnawed at you as the crowd held its breath, waiting for the storm to break. In that moment of anticipation, you realized the fight had only just begun, and what lay ahead could change everything. A low rumble swept across the arena, reverberating from the crowd like the warning before a thunderstorm. Out of the shadows, another figure emerged, their forms spilling into the light. An imposing presence, he towered above the rest, clad in gleaming armor that caught the sun and reflected a menacing sheen. "What is this?" he sneered, surveying the scene with a disdainful glare. The gladiator, now regaining his composure, turned to face this new threat, his expression shifting from fury to confusion. "You dare confront me, Cretus?" The gladiator spat, gripping his sword tighter, knuckles turning white. The name hung in the air, heavy and foreboding. The crowd gasped, a ripple of unease spreading through them as they recognized the powerful figure. Cretus stepped forward, a predator sizing up its prey. "It would be wise to sheath that sword," he advised, voice smooth and cruel. "But then again, wisdom has never been your strong suit." You felt the atmosphere shift, the stakes rising palpably. Fear coursed through your veins again, but mixed now with the adrenaline of your newfound allies. The cloaked figures maintained their resolve, standing steadfast and unyielding around you. "Don't let your pride blind you," the first figure warned Cretus, their voice firm. "This gladiator is not your concern anymore." "You're mistaken," Cretus snapped, his eyes narrowing. "He is the perfect example of why this place must be purged of weaklings like him. And you," he pointed a finger at you, piercing through the cloak of confusion, "what good will you do in this fight? You're nothing but a child playing with shadows." A surge of anger bubbled up within you, igniting something fierce. "You don't know me!" you shouted back, your voice echoing defiantly. The words had escaped before you could restrain them. "Then show me," Cretus challenged, a wicked grin spreading across his face. "Prove yourself, if you can." With that, he lunged forward, a blur of motion. You barely had time to react. The gladiator surged as well, thrusting his blade toward Cretus, but the armored figure was relentless. He sidestepped effortlessly, the choreography graceful, deadly. They barely exchanged blows, a wild dance of survival unfolding. The cloaked figures leaped into action, drawing weapons from beneath their cloaks. You felt a rush of exhilaration. This was what you had been waiting for. Yet, as you gripped your staff tightly, readying for the fray, a wild shot pierced your heart, a deeper looming threat. The more you witnessed, the more questions piled up. Who were these cloaked allies? What truly festered in Cretus's heart, pushing him to this moment? The crowd had become a cacophony, breaths held, hearts pounding as the warriors clashed. "Fight!" the first figure shouted, eyes fierce with the hunger for victory. "This is your moment." Your breath caught in your throat, the world narrowing down to this moment. You could see the gladiator struggling to keep up with Cretus, and just beyond him, a sliver of opportunity. You urged yourself forward, your muscles coiling tightly like springs ready to explode. There was no going back now, but as you stepped into the fray, a shadow darkened the arena, an ominous storm gathering above. Clouds rolled in, low and heavy, and a fierce wind whipped through the stands. "Do you hear that?" someone gasped from the crowd, their voice trembling. The shadows were not just lurking at the edges. They were converging, monstrous figures cloaked in intensity. In that moment, a chilling realization sank in. This wasn't just a fight for survival, it was the beginning of an onslaught. And as the first lightning bolt struck the ground with deafening fury, you understood, there were far greater forces at play, and now you were caught right in the middle. What would happen next? Would you stand strong against the storm, or would the shadows engulf you all? The lightning clawed its way across the sky, illuminating the faces in the crowd with ghostly light. Gasps mingled with shouts as Cretus charged, his armor glinting ominously. With a roar, the gladiator met him, blades clashing with a ferocity that sent shockwaves through the arena. You could feel the tremors beneath your feet, a pulse of fear echoing in your chest. The cloaked figures swept into the fray, moving with an urgency that both inspired and terrified you. Now! The first figure shouted, voice filled with determination. In that moment, you broke from the sidelines and thrust your staff forward. The wind whipped around you, filling your ears with a high-pitched whine, drowning out everything but the pounding of your heart. Your body caught up with your mind's desperate call to action. You were ready to find out who you were in this chaos, but doubt crept in like smoke. What if you collapsed under the weight of the moment? A howling wind spun through the arena, as if it were the breath of the storm itself, wrenching your thoughts back into focus. Cretus was a blur, a massive figure deflecting attacks with an ease that mocked your very existence. The gladiator was up against a hurricane, desperately trying to hold his ground, but you saw an opening. Cretus was too focused on the gladiator. The other cloaked figures coordinated like clockwork, surrounding him and striking in swift, sharp movements. You charged to their aid, channeling everything you'd learned, every ounce of courage sparking within you. Now! You shouted, a primal roar spilling from your lips. As you swung your staff, the air crackled against your skin, and with each movement, a surge of power flowed through you. You felt a connection to the storm above, an ancient force coursing in response to your defiance. With your first strike, you sent a surge of energy at Cretus, who staggered backward, eyes flashing with surprise. The crowd erupted, a wave of stunned disbelief morphing into astonished cheers. You could taste the thrill of acceptance, the validation you had long sought. For the first time, it wasn't just shadowy figures behind you, it was hope, a tide rising to confront the darkness. But Cretus recovered quickly, his eyes narrowing into slits of pure malice as he locked onto you. Child! He bellowed, venom lacing his voice. You think you can change the outcome? You're merely a flicker against the storm. His words rattled you, but you clenched your fists, defiance flaring like a fire in your belly. Fear twisted into determination. You were not just a spectator anymore. Just then, the air thickened, and a deafening crack echoed as thunder roared overhead. Massive shadows surged from the edges of the arena, shapes shifting in the tumult. They towered above, dark figures with hollow eyes, drawn toward the chaos. The very ground vibrated, a warning bell ringing in your ears. What are those? You gasped, glancing at the cloaked figures who were now fully engaged in a fight against Cretus and the approaching monsters. Protect what's left. The leaders shouted desperately, their voice cutting through the crackle of impending doom. As the first monstrous silhouette lunged forward, the crowd recoiled in terror. The atmosphere was electric, the stakes higher than ever. You felt the swell of purpose within you. You weren't just part of this fight, you were its spark. The arena became a battlefield, every swing, every breath filled with an urgency that pulsed through the air. But as the shadows closed in, looming with their ominous presence, merging with the storm, what lay ahead began to feel like a reckoning. Would you stand united against the chaos, or would you be devoured by the night? In that moment, with the clash of metal and the crack of thunder, the inevitable question surged. Would you rise to meet the storm, or would you crumble like the world around you? The arena's atmosphere thickened, a palpable tension wrapping around you like a noose. As the monstrous horde shrieked and advanced, your instincts kicked in hard. You had no time to think about who or what you might be. Survival and courage were all that mattered. The gladiator, with a swift movement, deflected one of the shadowy beasts. Its claws scraped against his armor, sending sparks cascading like fireflies through the night. Each desperate shout from the spectators felt like a looming deadline, a reminder that failure could mean more than personal ruin. It could mean annihilation. Your heart hammered as you squared your shoulders, stepping forward. Cretus was still recovering, fury twisting his features. But the figures trailing him were gaining ground, drawing nearer with fluid, preternatural speed. Their hollow eyes were fixated on you now, sinister gleams burning against the stormy backdrop. Stay focused. Fight. The leader commanded, slicing through the chaos like a knife. You could see the frantic determination in the leader's movements. They were drawing on whatever they had left, and you felt it sparking in you an electrifying call to arms. The shadows surged. You braced yourself, gripping your staff tightly. As the first figure lunged at you, its gnarled hands reaching for your throat, a part of you screamed. But the storm inside was louder, and with a swift motion, you met its charge head-on. Your staff cracked against its arm, the shock reverberating up your shoulder, but the creature staggered back a fleeting victory. Good. Keep moving, the leader encouraged, barely dodging a blow from Cretus as he attempted to regroup his forces. The cloaked figures were relentless, striking and weaving amid the Chaos Angels in a desperate battle against the abyss. Another beast approached, its maw gaping wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth. Panic flared in your chest, but combat instinct kicked in. You swung your staff, concentrating hard. The air around you shifted, a palpable charge forming, and with every strike, sparks flared in vivid bursts echoing your will. The crowd, oh, the crowd! Their collective gasp sent chills through you, a rhythmic breath that echoed your own. You were all thinking the same thing: this was it, all or nothing. You could feel their hopes resting on your shoulders, and that burden felt both crushing and exhilarating. Together! You yelled, urgency fueling your voice. It rang out against the howling wind, and for a heartbeat, the figures surrounding you seemed to pull closer, feeling your fervor. The leader met your eyes, their fierce resolve ignited by your call. With renewed strength, they charged toward Cretus again, fierce as a tempest. Keep pushing. We'll break through. But Cretus laughed, deep and echoing, his voice a dark thunder. This is nothing but a flicker. I'll snuff you out. With a swift motion, he summoned all his might, sending waves of energy crashing like thunderclaps. The shadows retaliated, their ranks thickening, closing in on your position. Flashes of fear rippled over the crowd, a shared anxiety that felt like a tightening fist around your heart. You threw out your hands, trying to counter the approaching darkness. Desperation surged, but self-doubt clawed at your mind. What if you couldn't hold them back? In that moment, something incredible happened. A burst of energy bright and blinding as the sun exploded from within you. It surged and shimmered, lighting up the arena as if a beacon had ignited. You let the power flow, summoning the storm as fury. It was raw, unbridled, and you were its undeserving vessel. Silence fell, and in that hush, you heard it, a heartbeat, steady and pounding, matching your own. The energy spread out, weaving through the shadows, and you felt the tide shift. You were not powerless, you were the storm incarnate. But with that surge came uncertainty. What would this awakening mean? Where would this power lead? As the shadows faltered, doubt and exhilaration intertwined, threatening to unravel you even as victory seemed tantalizingly close. What would you sacrifice to maintain this newfound strength? The questions echoed in your mind as the storm above raged on, demanding answers you were terrified to face. Would you rise to the occasion, or would darkness consume you whole? You stood at the center of chaos, the energy glowing like a wildfire in the darkness, illuminating the desperate expressions etched on the faces surrounding you. The shadows recoiled, momentarily daunted by the raw power you had just unleashed. But you knew this respite wouldn't last. You could feel the tendrils of darkness regrouping, recalibrating their onslaught. What are you waiting for? Attack! The leader shouted, their voice breaking through your fog of doubt. Their urgency reignited your determination. You hurled your staff forward, channeling the energy that hummed just beneath your skin. Sparks flew once more as you slammed the weapon down, sending a shockwave through the ground, a ripple of light against the encroaching dark. The crowd erupted, their cheers pairing with the thrilling adrenaline coursing through you. But doubt lingered like a summer storm cloud. What if this power wasn't just a fleeting moment? What if it demanded a price, a desperate bargain sealed in blood and pain? The thought made your heart race, faster than the verdant shadows closing in. Suddenly, a beast lunged forward from the side, teeth flashing like silver daggers. Panic clawed at your throat. You sidestepped just in time, feeling the rush of wind as the creature whirled past, slashing through the air with razor-sharp claws. You swung your staff, but it clashed with the monster, sending shockwaves up your arms. The pressure intensified, and the stakes were impossibly high. Cretus, with his sinister grin, pulled away from the fray. Do you feel it? He taunted, his voice seeping venom through the air. That power, it's feeding off your fear. You'll never control it. His eyes gleamed with wicked satisfaction, dark anticipation lighting his features as he gestured to the shadows, which surged anew. Your breath hitched, and the weight of his words crushed your resolve. Would you truly be governed by that darkness and unfathomable force seeking to claim you whole? Enough! You shouted, your voice cutting through the haze of doubt. You pushed against that feeling of despair, summoning the pulsating energy deep within. I want to be a puppet to your shadows. As if in response, the brilliance within you flared, a beacon that defied Cretus' malignant influence. Give in! He commanded, desperation coating his tone. But you wouldn't back down. Not now. Not ever. With every ounce of focus, you released the energy again. This time, it surged like a wildfire, crackling and roaring as it ricocheted around the arena. The shadows shrieked, recoiling once more, stumbling as your radiant storm pushed deep into their ranks. You could feel them dissipating, each burst of light reducing their numbers as the crowd roared with renewed hope. But that triumph was short-lived. The earth itself trembled beneath you as Cretus raised his hands, a dark storm gathering around him. You think you've won? You've only begun to feel my wrath. The arena quaked, fissures spiderwebbing across the ground as if warning of a greater threat. A chilling wind howled, and a sense of dread settled in your gut. You were not alone, this was Cretus' domain. The darkness responded, coiling around him like a serpent ready to strike. Suddenly, the beasts weren't just shadows. They transformed, gaining mass, teeth, and fury. You felt their energy pulsating, almost sentient, resentful of your defiance. Could it be? The shadows were coming alive, forging unity in their anger against you. Fight! The leader roared, but panic clawed at your heart as the monstrous forms surged forward again. You were at a crossroads. Embrace the storm within, or let the shadows swallow you whole. Would the force that felt so empowering, so exhilarating, turn against you when the darkness struck back? The ground trembled beneath your feet, and with every heartbeat came the fear of imminent destruction. As the monstrous forms rushed at you, you had one choice left. What would you choose in that very moment? Your heart thundered in your chest, the primal instinct of survival kicking in as monstrous faces twisted and snarled just feet away. They were no longer mere shadows. They were beasts, a terrifying amalgamation of rage and darkness, and they were coming for you. You gripped your staff, feeling the once comforting energy transforming into a wild storm within you. Doubt flashed through your mind. What if unleashing this power meant your own undoing? But fear ignited a different flame. In that pivotal moment, you drew a deep breath, recalibrating your focus. Here goes nothing, you murmured, the words almost swallowed by the chaos. You stomped your foot, channeling all the energy swirling inside, sending a pulse of light radiating outward. It barreled through the arena like a tidal wave, illuminating the dark and pushing back the encroaching shadows. But Cretus wasn't finished. He laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the rampaging crowd and sent a shiver down your spine. You think your flame can outshine the abyss? I will make you regret this day. With a flick of his wrist, the air thickened like molasses. You gasped as a malevolent aura enveloped you, trapping you in a cage of darkness. The beasts circled closer, their snarls mingling with the howling wind, hungry for your defeat. Desperation flooded your veins. Not today! You shouted, your voice steady despite the fear clawing at your insides. You thrust your staff into the ground, channeling every scrap of energy left within you. The earth beneath your feet responded, trembling as a wave of brilliant light erupted, sending beasts flying as they screeched in pain. For a heartbeat, the arena was silent, the din of battle muted by the sudden burst of radiance. The crowd gasped. Hope flickered like a candle flame in the onlookers' eyes. But then it happened. Cretus screamed, fury twisting his features. You think it's over? Suddenly, the shadows surged, drawn to him with a vengeance. They coalesced into a massive, swirling vortex of darkness, even more formidable than before. This was like nothing you had faced, a gaping maw of despair fueled by Cretus' insatiable rage. Each beast that struck against your light now bounced away, swarming recklessly, almost rabid. You felt their energy churn, darkness binding together, unfurling like a storm cloud, growing stronger and more directed in their assault. Gather your power! The leader urged again, urgency lacing their voice. But how? You had already pushed yourself to your limits. A flicker of panic flashed through the crowd. They could see your struggle, feel your hesitation. Then, a strange sensation washed over you. The gnawing fear began to shift, circling back to resolve. You recognized it in those desperate faces. This power wasn't just yours, it pulsated within every person here, binding them to you. Those cheers, the cries of support, they were fuel, an invocation igniting a collective force. The realization struck hard. You needed them. With renewed vigor, you lifted your staff high, channeling the light back into the crowd, calling upon their collective strength. Together, you yelled, feeling the energy from their rallying cries leap into you. As the dark storm swirled menacingly above, you held firm. The once terrifying shadows began to shrink, their collective force now dwindling, struggling against the brightness that radiated from you and the crowd. But just as victory seemed within reach, Cretus' eyes glinted with something darker. "Fools!" he growled. "You've merely awakened what was sleeping, the real terror is yet to come." The very air shifted, a grim promise laced in his words. As the shadows writhing around him seemed to take on new, grotesque forms, a chilling realization crept in. You had disturbed something ancient and deadly. Light flared a second time, a fierce resolve melding with fear. The fight was far from over. And as those monstrous faces found greater purpose, one question echoed through the chaos: what lay beyond the shadows? The storm raged on, raw and furious. You felt the weight of your heart, the pulse of the crowd echoing like a drum against your chest as the arena vibrated with tension. Cretus stood there, a malevolent figure encased in darkness, the shadows coiling and morphing into grotesque forms. Each new swell of dark energy pulsed with an unsettling life, threatening to overtake everything you had fought for. "Prepare yourselves," the cloak leader shouted, urgency lacing their voice like razor wire. The figures around you assumed defensive positions, their weapons drawn, eyes filled with steely resolve. You tightened your grip on your staff, feeling the shimmer of light within swell with the voices of those around you. Instinct kicked in. You looked at the arena, the crowd, at the woman who had been bound to that post just moments ago. Her courage ignited something deep within. You needed to rally that energy, every pulse of hope, every breath of defiance. You brought your staff down, commanding attention. "Together!" you roared, your voice cutting through the storm like a blade through fog. The crowd exploded with renewed courage. They were no longer mere spectators. They were allies, warriors of light, each heart pounding in unison to face the encroaching darkness. With desperation fueling your every movement, you channeled that collective energy into your staff, where it shimmered and crackled with electric promise. The darkness writhed before you, a creeping fog of despair eager to suffocate your resolve. As if sensing your intent, Cretus threw back his head and laughed, a chilling sound that echoed off the walls of the arena. "You think you can defeat me? You're mistaken. I am the darkness, the true shadow that stirs in the hearts of men. I doubt your flimsy light could illuminate anything against my presence." Fear clawed at your throat, but a surge of anger flared hot within you. "You underestimate what we are capable of." Drawing strength from the crowd, you launched yourself forward, heart racing as you swung your staff in an arc of light. The arena erupted in brilliance, and your spirit soared alongside the glow. Light burst forth, striking against the tide of darkness, spilling like molten gold across the battlefield. The shifting shadows howled, recoiling against the onslaught, but Cretus would not give in so easily. He surged forward, gathering the shadows around him into a swirling vortex that threatened to swallow everything in its path. "You will all perish!" he bellowed, his fury palpable in the electric air. But as the crowd roared in unison, their spirit pulsing like a beacon, the power within you surged. You could feel it every heartbeat, every cheer molding the energy swirling within. You lifted your staff above your head, commanding the light. "We stand together!" With one final cry, you released everything you had, summoning the might of your allies, your light blazing furiously. The shadows screamed and twisted, but your illumination broke through, shimmering brilliantly. Every dark tendril fell before the onslaught, dwindling under the radiant force of unity. As the vortex collapsed upon itself, Cretus's triumphant facade crumbled. "No!" This can't be. His voice trembled, raw and torn. You dare oppose me? I will, but it was too late. The darkness shattered, spiraling into the sky like wisps of smoke caught in a gale. A brilliant burst rang out, slicing through the air. The arena erupted in light, blinding, as the last remnants of shadow dissolved into nothingness, and then silence. With the quiet settling, the world came back into focus. The crowd stood breathless, their faces alight with disbelief. The cloaked figures lowered their weapons, awe spread across their features, mingling with cautious hope. You turned to the woman, still standing where you had left her, free from her bonds, her expression shifting from fear to gratitude. You did it, she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. You saved us all. Exhilaration coursed through your veins, filling you with warmth and undeniable sense of accomplishment. You had faced the storm, and now the sun broke through the clouds above, bathing the arena in ethereal glows. The leader of the cloaked figures stepped forward, their face solemn yet proud. You fought well, runner of light. Remember, this power comes not from a solitary heart but from the bonds forged in shared struggle. Harness that strength. Fingers trembling, you nodded, absorbing each word with depth. You were no longer the untested soul. You had become a beacon of resilience, a warrior who had ignited the hearts of many. Slowly, the crowd dispersed, moving with newfound energy and hope. They would speak of this day, the day shadows were banished, the day that unity triumphed over despair. Your heart swelled as you looked around. This was your moment of belonging, your legacy. Thank you, you said softly to the woman, whose eyes mirrored your own gratitude. Thank you for believing in me. With the weight of unspoken promises between you, you handed her your staff, a token of shared strength. The fight wasn't just yours anymore. It was the foundation of a new narrative where hope would flourish, where joy would take root even in the darkest places. As the sun sank beneath the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold, you stepped forward, arms wide open to a world reborn. This was your farewell, the end of one chapter and the dawn of another. You had turned fear into purpose, shadows into light, and in doing so, you had found your place in this world. Now, the call to action. You need to subscribe immediately to my channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will blow your mind. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help push this community into new heights. It really makes a difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions, your thoughts, and theories about this epic conclusion. I want to hear from you. And for the love of all that's good, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Your support matters more than you know, and only true fans like you understand the importance of building this community. Join us today.